All right, everybody, welcome into the Abundance to Give podcast. It's Justin Brennan. I'm here with Devan Bonebrake. Incredible last name.
Thank you. Thank you.
And can I even put you on the spectrum of professional minor golfer? Where would you kind of put yourself on that?
Sure. Yeah. Technically, I'm a professional golfer, but more on the teaching side. So even if you teach golf, don't play golf at all, you're still professional, considering in the rules of golf. So, if you taught a lesson, you took money for it, you'd be a professional. Actually,
is that what they consider?
Somewhat,
that?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhat. But teaching professional more so than playing professional, if you want to be technical about it.
And so, what do you currently do? So everybody kind of listening in and watching in, your current profession and kind of what you get out of the education teaching side of golf, but really with the Golf Channel and everything else.
Sure. Yeah. No, I had a great start. I worked under a guy named Jim McLean. He's always number 1, 2, 3 ranked golf coach in the world. He's had academies all across the world, hundreds of employees. And so I was actually his personal assistant in Miami when I started my career. So it was great to be under someone that's done so well.
Wow.
It was kind of like I equated to the Devil Wears Prada, where like there's so much opportunity, but at the same time, like you got to be able to take it. Sometimes it could better.
So
than
that
others.
was the relationship. A Devil's Wears Prada.
It would be like, hey, like we're gonna have a lesson with Greg Norman and Keegan Bradley, and then here's my laundry. Better make sure it's fucking clean later.
Okay.
But it was well deserved. It was probably like by far the best thing in my career to like kind of help give me a roadmap to where to go.
Was he pretty hard? He was pretty hardcore.
He's definitely more of like the stick than the carrot, if you've heard that before.
Yeah.
But we still communicate all the time today. I mean, we were just texting yesterday, and I worked for him for nine years after that. Just teaching for him.
So that was that out of college or was that
it was right out of college? It was kind of phase 1. I moved from
what age were you at this time?
Yeah, so graduated from San Diego State. Originally worked for him at PGA West, which is in the desert. So I moved to the desert. Not the most socially inclined area, so I really focused on golf a lot.
So what were you? Nothing at night
just
and
golfing.
Just golf during the day.
I would work all day and then I would study golf swings and read all night.
How long did you do that for?
I was only there for a year, and then he came out there, met me, and he's like, I want you to come to Doral, which is in Miami. They actually had a LIV event this last year to be my personal assistant. So I came out there, taught there for a year, and then he opened a junior academy where they had kids from all over the world come and live on campus, in a sense.
Oh, wow.
In Texas. It was like Fort Worth, Dallas area. And I was there for another 7 years after that.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
So after that, at what point did you come into Southern California?
Sure. Yeah. No, good question. That's actually kind of when we met. I moved out here, opened an academy in Carlsbad. It was called the Southern California Golf Academy. And, was able to, meet a ton of people in the area. It was great. That was kind of really when I went on my own. I wasn't really sure.
What year was that?
This was 2016.
Okay.
Yeah. And when you leave, I'm sure it happens to people in all sorts of companies, whether you're with Apple or, you're a big law firm or whatever, and you kind of go out on your own. You're kind of like, did they just come to me because I was at this company, or is it because, I was actually decent at what I did? And it was great. It actually was way better than I would have thought. So much so that I got recruited to go up to LA to open a course called Rolling Hills and Palos Verdes as a director of instruction. So that was kind of that next step. But it was cool because it kind of was my first, dipping my toe in the water as far as like starting a business. Because before I was always working for somebody else.
So in Palos Verdes, you opened up the course, or you opened up the training facilities at the course?
The training facilities at the course. Yeah. So they did I think it was like a $75 million renovation. Wow. David McClay kid who did Bandon Dunes and some other very famous courses did the remodel there. They actually kind of interesting story. They were kind of a smaller, very nice area, obviously, but kind of a smaller tree-lined golf course, not really a ton of real estate, small clubhouse. And I think most of the people in the area had an appetite for more. They were able to acquire, finally, there was like a mining area that they were able to acquire just across the street. So they doubled their acreage and then basically built the clubhouse 2 miles down the road. Wow. Same guys that did some of the biggest country clubs in all of California.
Wow. This is Palos Verdes.
Yeah. So
it's a pretty prestigious area.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So it's Rolling Hills Estates.
Okay.
Which is, there's Rolling Hills Estates, Rolling Hills, Palos Verdes Estates, and Rancho Palos Verdes, which is like where Trump's course is. So a lot of golf over there. So yeah, we started that in end of 2017, and I was there through like 2020, and it was just really growing this. They didn't really have even a driving range before. Like
wow.
they had no land. I think the most you could hit was a pitching wedge, and we had we probably arguably have the best. We meaning I'm not there anymore, but they have the best practice facilities, I would say, at a private club in all of California, especially coastal California for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very, very impressive.
And they did that for $75 million ish.
Yeah. So I think it was, give or take, don't quote me exactly on that, but they had to do all sorts of stuff. I mean, just, rules and regulations. It's kind of a horse riding area. So they had to have this massive horse riding fence that went all around the entire community to kind of obviously keep everything looking the way it needed to look. I'm sure there's a lot of hoops they had to jump through. Same, some stuff that I'm sure you do all the time.
Right. On the development.
Especially in California, there's a lot of stuff like that. So, but yeah, they did an amazing job. Memberships more than full, long waiting list. Now I have students that are like, hey, you used to be there. Like, how can you get me in before everybody else type of thing? So,
what age were you at this point?
Yeah. So I went there when I was 31.
Okay.
32. Sorry.
In how many years again?
I was there for 4.5 5
okay,
years.
35. You're kind of in
I think at like 36 is when I kind of finally left. Yeah.
And have you always kind of wanted to have this entrepreneurial, push in you, or has it been more of, hey, I want to work for the man? Or, I mean, what kind of is in that inner drive?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think I always have been kind of that entrepreneurial drive for whatever reason. I mean, growing up, like one of my first businesses, I was like 9. I was one of the first homes in the area. And so there was all these homes being built. It was in Oregon. It's hot in the summer. It's not most of the year, but it's hot in the summer. So, there'd probably be 150 homes at one time being built in this, kind of, I don't call it track home neighborhood because they're all a little different, but, new development, if you will. And so I would go to the grocery store. I'd buy, sodas, Gatorades, waters, whatever. And I would get a big tub and put it on one of those little like garbage can wheelers. Yeah. I would just wheel it around and like, hey, you guys want anything? And like for them, when you're thirsty, you're like, I will pay $10 for
how old were
water.
you at this? 9?
I was like 9 or 10.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, they love the little kid.
Yeah, they were cool with it. Yeah, it was awesome.
Look at the little entrepreneur guy hustling.
For sure. So that was the first thing. And then we started doing, a buddy of mine, neighbor of mine, started painting curbs where you put the address and then you have like the reflective paint. And that's sales pitch. Like, you can't find your house at night. You're gonna lose your packages, And so we put all that stuff up and, we'd go door to door during the day, at night. And then we paint during the day when they were gone. Okay. And so, yeah, I mean, stuff like that was great. And I think, I don't know about you, but like also just playing sports growing up, like you get competitive. And so if you're not playing sports as much anymore, then you're competitive in another way and you can take it to kind of more, for me, like the golf business area. And that's kind of how it evolved.
So with kind of, our podcast, being abundance to give. And, we started this a couple of years ago, kind of completely organically. We actually were filming it in Chris's house.
Oh, cool.
That's where we started.
Yeah.
But the concept behind it came from Mr. Beast. Do you know who Mr. Beast is? Do you know who Mr. Beast is? He does.
Okay.
My kids love him, right? And I learned about him a few years ago watching YouTube because he started by playing video games and filming himself play video games and had like 1,200 subscribers or whatever. Wow. And then that wasn't really catching on. So he decided, we're just going to give a bunch of free shit away. Okay. So he ended up getting some friends, going into Best Buys, putting kind of blue painter's tape on the ground in a circle, covering it with a blanket, grabbing some random person in the store, bringing them over, pulling off the blanket and saying, hey, anything you can fit in this circle in the next 5 minutes, you get.
That's awesome.
Right. So now, of course, people are freaking out. They're running around the store. It's like, it's like shopping mart and stacking stuff like Tetris.
Yeah. What was that show back in the day that they used to do that? Remember that? They'd have like a minute and then they would go around.
Like shopping something. I don't know the name, but shopping something.
We're aging ourselves here, but yeah.
And people would do all this. And then the moms are crying because they like were able to get their kids things that they never had before. And of course it goes viral. And now he's the #1 guy on YouTube with like, 300 million subscribers or some crazy, outrageous amount.
That's incredible.
I mean, I don't even know how much money that guy makes anymore.
Yeah.
But the point being is he realized that, look, through giving and helping and leaving legacy and giving back, you create abundance. So hence I was like, God, how cool would it be to create a podcast or surrounded around interviewing, entrepreneurs, successful folks, but not so much about what you do and your tactics and strategies, but a few layers deep of what things do you care about? What are some passions? What are kind of the things that motivate you every day to get out of bed and go do things? Like, why are you working and doing the things you're doing today? Is there a bigger purpose or vision on that for you?
Yeah. I mean, I think in this case particularly, I mean, I've always thought about, people ask the question like, hey, if you won the lottery, what would you do? And, for the last 10 years, I've always said I would just open up my own golf academy because I just want to help people get better at golf. I know how hard it can be. And really, with this new company, Studio Golf, it's giving people access to the same tools the best players in the world have at a fraction of the price. And not necessarily, golf's gonna be hard regardless, let's be honest. But at the end of the day, it can be so much easier and less frustrating and motivating if you see a progressive improvement versus, flatlining or decline, which can happen in golf. It's weird. You can put months in and you work on the wrong thing, you actually get worse. And you're like, what's going on here? Like,
I mean, the amount of ups and
time.
downs. I mean,
Yeah,
I think
like-
I watched that Netflix documentary, what, Full Swing?
Full
Is it Full
swing. Yeah.
I mean,
Even at that level.
yeah, you get to see, the best of the best of the best and how, tactically they're incredible.
Sure.
But as we all know, it's between the ears. And if they just get into a rut, they start to second guess themselves.
Right.
And then you just this and then that, and then your swing's off, and then you tweak that and that screws that up. And then
1,000%.
it's wild
And that's
how you could be the
magnified.
best of the best and you get into bad ruts and it could be rough.
Very rough, especially at that level. Because I mean, the highs and lows are dramatic change in lifestyle, money, resources, all that type of stuff. Just ability to get into events. And then, take that all the way to the amateur level. It's like these people are struggling with all of these resources. Imagine people that don't have these resources.
Right.
So that was the main thing. I mean, most of the technology these days that's very helpful is very expensive. But at the same time, if you were to buy it yourself, you're not going to be using it 24/7. You have to work, you have kids, you have whatever.
You might as well leverage it.
You might as well leverage it, right? So if you can share that with X amount of people, you can still use it whenever you want to. You're going to have a lot more clarity on what you want to work on, when you're getting better and why. And if you don't do something right, you'll know why exactly. You're not going to think about, hey, what did my brother tell me 2 years ago that worked that one time at this one course and I played well at? Like, we all have done that, You're like, I played great that day. I was thinking about my, my left hand being relaxed at this point in time, like these random things. And really for us, it's just about having consistency. And, this is the path. You're going to have a little bit of deviation, but as long as you understand the negative times, the positive times, and how to get back on track,
right.
and dial it immediately and minutely, then success is inevitable.
I love that.
Yeah.
So you go to, is it Callaway or where did that, you come out of Palos Verdes at 35 and you're running that academy, and where did you go next?
Yeah. So while I was in Rolling Hills, there was an indoor golf fitness facility that had opened right before COVID, unfortunately, indoor LA.
Yeah.
And so the fitness guy there really wanted to keep it going. The golf guy, that it was kind of like a half golf fitness, and it was called Unity. And the goal was to have unite the golf fitness side. So like the golf professional would be like, hey, you can't move very well, go see my fitness guy, get worked out, get stretched out. And the stretching guy might be like, hey, your body's working great. If you're not hitting it well, it's probably a form or technique thing. And so they would kind of pass back and forth.
Sure.
The golf professional ended up getting out of the business. He just was kind of overweighting 2 years to be able to be open, and sold it to me. I would probably say at like 30, 40 cents on the dollar, which is great. And so I bought it more of an investment, hired someone to run it. And then probably 6 months later, I ended up leaving Rolling Hills. And so I started teaching there. One of the members at Rolling Hills, who's now my business partner, said, hey, I saw what you have. I think it's really great. I think with my help, however, it could be a lot better. And so we decided to start our own business and try to basically make the indoor golf scene elevated, a little more luxurious in a lot of ways, but also more accessible too. Like, I think that's a big thing too that I'm really excited about, is helping, whether it's, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard this, I'm sure you can, relate in some ways, but like, I've heard so many friends and just people that I've come in to teach say, from the last 10 years, I really haven't golfed much. I've had kids. They just like took so much time. I didn't have any time to do it. Now they're finally of age. Well, whatever, like I can get back into it. Well, something's like 3 minutes down the road and you can spend a really efficient 45 minutes due to the technology that we have. Like, it's still possible. Like, you don't have to just quit.
Sure.
And so I think the ease of access is going to be awesome for so many people that are locally in the area, because you can get here within 15 minutes of downtown. Obviously, it's in Pacific Beach, right off the 5 Mission Bay Boulevard, Mission Bay Drive, I should say, here, Mission Valley, and even La Jolla. So, I mean, it kind of covers a lot of ground.
So let's talk about that. So you started this new business, and this was right around COVID-ish. Now it's called Studio Golf.
Correct.
And you've opened up a few locations, and now you're coming into San Diego. Give me kind of the, 1 minute elevator pitch on what it is and how it can help people, because I was amazed by it when you told me that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, sure. So essentially it's a golf, fitness, and social club, membership based. And it's a place that utilizes, as I kind of mentioned earlier, not to be a broken record, but the same technology the best players in the world use, which is like TrackMan. You'll see these orange, yellow boxes behind all the players when they're practicing. And what's really cool, something that we were actually the very first studio in the country to have, more have it now, but it's a markerless 3D system. So if you've seen someone, say you take LeBron and he's on like NBA 2K or whatever.
Yeah. They put all the markers.
Put all the markers. He's stunking. So that way it looks real and, it's more fun to play. Well, they're now able to use that technology without markers. So using AI. And so you can be in a bay and it can sense where every single, No, I should say every single, but most of your joints, shoulders, hips,
Really?
everything are.
It's getting that crazy?
Yeah. And so you can say, I'm just making this up, but let's say on the backswing, you sway off the ball 4 inches. It will tell you at every single point in the swing within inches how much you're moving in either direction and what is the corridor of success, meaning like where are the best players at? Where are you at? Is it green, yellow, or red? And it makes it
So you
very
can
simple.
tweak your swing pretty quick
So
as long as you stay in the guide, right?
Stay in the
rails,
right? And then we also, which is kind of cool, have this touch screen that we put in that have tips for me how to fix all those problems. So if you have a problem and you're like, I'm swaying, this is what the machine's saying, then you click on the touch screen, like a Netflix kind of style kiosk, and I come up and say, hey, you know, if you're swaying, this is the drill that I would recommend. Do this 3 times and hit a shot.
You know what would be badass? And at some point, maybe they figure this out.
Yeah.
Like you said, you can do the touch screen, all that stuff. If in this little bay or whatever it is they create, somehow they can get somebody, like if I went up there and I swung and I was out of whack, during the swing, it would, I don't know, grab my arms and make me get back in alignment or something. I don't know how it would do this, but using your body tissues and like hold you in alignment like magnetically. I don't know, some weird shit.
So there is, I mean, there's biofeedback, meaning it can give you information. This is out there where say you make the movement correctly, it'll make a certain noise, incorrectly make another noise. So it kind of gives you that biofeedback as you're doing it. There also is this giant golf robot, essentially. We are not going to have one, but they're at like Pebble Beach. It's at a few other places. It's really cool. I don't know how applicable it always would be, but essentially it has a golf club attached to it, and then you can make it swing however you want it to swing. So if you are too flat in your swing, it can swing upright. It can swing like Scotty Scheffler. It can swing like Rory McIlroy. You can feel what their swing feels like over and over again. And then the idea is that you would repeat the same thing. You know, without the muscles being activated in the same way. Like when it's guiding you, it's a little bit different than you guiding the club. But at the same time, I think it's pretty neat. So I think, they're probably moving in that direction. And you know, at the end of the day, I just want stuff that makes it easier for people to get better. It's such a great game, but most people never really get to the point where they're playing the game of golf because they're thinking about their right arm or they're thinking about the grip, or you know, they're not thinking about like, oh, the bunker's here, the wind's to my left, and so I'm going to aim here. Like that's the fun part. It's like the chess part of
the
golf.
tactics.
The tactics, right? Exactly.
So cost wise, I mean, just giving people general, give me like a rundown of a subscription service at Studio Golf.
Yeah. So right now we're doing like a founding membership just since we're not open yet and people are kind of trusting that it's going to be a good facility. It's $195 a month, unlimited use. You get a free lesson when you start, free fitness assessment.
So one lesson a month or just one lesson period?
Just at the beginning.
Okay.
From there, any sort of service like a club fitting, you know, fitness training or lessons are an add-on. But you can book a bay whenever you want. You could do it every single day if you wanted to. So theoretically, if you went 30 days in a row, that would be like $6 or $7 a day.
Yeah.
$7. Yeah. 6.
And what's in the bay?
Great question. So TrackMan simulation. So there's a TrackMan simulator. It's the #1 simulator you can have. The Sportsbox AI cameras. So every time you hit, there's TVs on the ground that basically are like a live camera view from the front to the back, kind of like we are here.
Yeah.
But you can see yourself doing it and it plays back immediately for you.
Okay.
So every time you hit it, shows where your ball went, shows your path, your face. There's a touchscreen kiosk. And then there's like nice furniture and lounge tables and coffee tables, stuff like that.
So in this bay, like if I was swinging the wrong way, would it correct me in that?
It would tell you what you're doing incorrectly.
Okay.
And then either you can work on it yourself or if, you know, ideally you'd have a combination of both. You would come, you'd practice on your own. Self-discovery is a big key and awareness. You don't want to rely on a coach, but it also is helpful, just like with anything, mentors, whatever, to kind of keep you in the bumpers. Like, all right, I don't know about going this direction quite as much or this direction, and kind of this is the best way to go. So I think that really it's not an all or nothing.
Okay.
I would not say only do it on your own, and I would not say to only use a coach.
So I don't know how you are, but I seem to think that I get better when I drink a little bit.
Okay.
So is there drinking at your facility?
Yes, we have a beer and wine license.
I mean, I think, you know, my swing gets a little, you know, more relaxed if I have just a beer or two.
For sure. There's
plastered.
I call it like a bell curve, you know, there's like a depending on the person and depending on where you're at, but for sure, I mean, nerves and tension kills a golf swing. Yeah. Right. If you're tense, if you're apprehensive, no good. And it's not a reaction sport, so it happens more and more, and people freeze over the ball.
It's got to be that fluid feel, right?
Yeah,
and it's hard to.
Fluid comes from fluid sometimes, if you know what I'm saying. But also, there's a point of diminishing returns where you know you lose motor control, you can't walk straight. So really, we designed it so that it can be very fun and social at the right times. Yeah. If your kid's getting a golf lesson, you want to have a glass of wine and watch, you can. You want to do some work, have a meeting that you know you and your associate are the only ones that can go in there. It's kind of like a great atmosphere for all of those types of things. We have obviously Wi-Fi.
Are kids allowed in there or no?
Yeah.
Okay. Do they have like little iPad thingies so they can just bring them and then
we have all the outlets that you would ever need in the world,
yeah,
but
and
we
the
don't
kids
have
would
our
probably
own
want to play
iPads.
with the stuff anyways. But
yeah, we have some really cool putting simulations type stuff too, where it's a giant putting green and it tracks your golf ball. There's different games you can play, like golf pong and just all sorts of things, all the way from very technical to very more like, gamification, if you want to.
Are there one-offs? Like if I was a walk-in and I wanted to come in, could I do that?
We do a free initial session,
Okay.
and then after that, you have to kind of decide if you want to be a member or not.
Okay.
So members only.
So I couldn't like get a pack of 3 or something like that.
You could. Now I will take that back slightly. You can get a service not being a member. So if you want to take a pack, if you want to buy a pack of lessons and you're not a member, that's totally fine.
Gotcha.
But you either are a member or you have to be with someone that has a service there.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's jump into PGA versus LIV Golf.
Okay.
What do you see in the future? I mean, everybody talks about like what's coming, right? But LIV has so much money and power behind it. And then you're seeing it now become a little bit more accepted going, oh crap. Do you think it was a cop out?
Cop out in what sense?
Where you heard the PGA commissioner, I think was that who?
JBn&x?
Yeah. Adamantly come out years ago and say, no, we will never be that. We're the PGA and blah, blah,
sure.
blah, 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 and then be adamant on that. And then it seemed like after a couple meetings with LIV and PGA, and what I find interesting is this, and I think I gave you this analogy, because a lot of the money was coming out of, the wealth fund of Saudi Arabia and all this other stuff. That same wealth fund or similar to it had invested in a lot of other companies in the United States. One of them would be Compass Real Estate, which had similar processes of coming into the market, massive money, buy up agents, go buy up companies. When they get to the signing table, because they've stripped the company during the negotiations of all of their agents, they'd come to the signing table and retrade the company, right? And screw them up.
Interesting.
And basically force people into bad decisions and bad negotiations by kind of manhandling the situation because of money.
Yeah.
And my gut tells me that a similar situation came on with PGA, where PGA was super adamant, no, 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 no. And then all of a sudden, after a couple meetings and negotiations, I'm sure LIV Golf came in with their powerhouses and said, listen, you guys have a couple choices. We can either do this together or we're just going to gobble you up and spit you out. And here's the plan and here's what's going down and blah, 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 blah. And we've already got this, and this. And they basically backed them into a corner to where they had no decision other than to drop, their shorts.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that first off, the best thing that's ever going to happen is that, however it does happen, is for all the best players to play together.
Right.
I don't think the bifurcation is good in that sense, where you have Brooks Koepka playing in one tour and Bryson only playing maybe in a major here and there, or the best players in the world not having points. At the same time, I think that really probably what pushed the PGA the most was seeing what players are actually going to go, and just like I'm sure for all of us, they probably didn't expect initially some of the people to leave. And, money does talk. Some people care about it more than others, and et cetera. But, at the end of the day, if they just never give up, it's going to be a tough challenge. I think they're going to do much better together than they would separately. As you mentioned, some people are going to talk a lot about the ethics of where the money's coming from. That's a whole nother discussion.
Right.
Is like you mentioned, they also invest in, a lot of companies that are in the United States that you might, have stocks in and et cetera. So it's kind of hard to sometimes say like, oh, you should never, be associated with this. I think I would rather that money spent on golf than whoever else knows what it's going to be spent on.
Right.
And so, to me, I think they just have to find a way to, I think the hardest part is going to be the guys that took the money and left. If they do come back together, is there, and I'm not saying there should be in any way, but is there any sort of consequence for those guys? Because the guys that were loyal, that are just as, highly ranked, and they're like, I'm going to stick with PGA Tour.
McIlroy and on and on and on.
Yeah,
right?
For sure. Right. I mean, Scotty Scheffler, I mean, there still are so many amazing, more so really, golfers on PGA Tour, but LIV has so many good players too. I was just looking at,
who's the top five over there now? You got Koepka,
Rahm, number one.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the biggest one because he got paid the most. So, and it was the most recent leave. So if he goes back, it's
when did he leave?
About a year ago, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you could say Joaquin Neiman, Rahm, Koepka, Bryson, obviously, I should have said him. I mean, there's Dustin Johnson's on there. I mean, Sergio Garcia. Some guys made a little more sense. I'm not, kind of the tail end of my career. Or, you know, I've been injured. I don't know what's going to happen. I want,
Well, yeah, like
I want the
Mickelson,
guarantee.
you know, Mickelson being a
Mickelson.
San Diego guy.
Yeah.
I mean, we've followed him for years, and yeah, he's on the tail end, like you said, and
So
he's a brand name.
And you're allowed to do what you want to do. You
Yeah.
know, I wouldn't get mad at any of those guys. I get mad in the sense of just, I'd love to see them all play together. And that's why, which I will also say contradictory, that it kind of makes majors so interesting to watch now. Because you're seeing players like when Rory and Bryson faced off at Pinehurst, I hadn't seen them play together for a while. Like it's really cool to have. It's almost like it's.
And
not
why
really,
are they allowed to play at the majors?
Because they're not PGA Tour events.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of a convoluted thing, but like the PGA Tour owns certain events that they play.
Yep.
And then really the larger events, none of those are PGA Tour events. One's owned, like there's the Masters, obviously, held at Augusta National. There's the US Open, that's a USGA event. The British Open or the Open Championship, which is a RNA event.
Gotcha.
And then
so those are just whatever big master major events that anybody can play out if you make cuts.
Yeah, you have to either have a certain golf rank, certain world ranking, qualify in different categories or different ways. And really the goal of it is to have at that given time, not necessarily over the history, but that given time, the best players in the world. Now there's some exemptions like, hey, if you win the Masters, you can play the Masters the rest of your life. So I think Arnold Palmer played to his 70s or late 70s, which I would too.
Well, yeah.
I mean, why would you not go there, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think that that's exciting, and I would love to kind of see it again because I think in some ways golf's never been greater. I mean, even rounds played since the pandemic, which went way up, is still rising slightly, which is really cool to see because a lot of things went way up and then way down.
Yep.
And you had to, which is tough for companies, right? Like you have to adapt super quickly because there's this huge demand, but then all of a sudden the demand goes down because
drop off.
Things change, and it's like you have all these employees, and it's very difficult, obviously. In golf's case, luckily, like it hasn't really changed a whole lot. If anything, it still continues to get better. And I think it's because people are realizing, you know, and I love a lot of the, you know, kind of more modern, young social media stuff because I think it brings people into golf where maybe before they thought it was kind of a stuffy sport.
Right.
And you can say, yeah, let's go with the boys, have some fun, have some drinks. Like, it doesn't really matter how you get into it. Some people are going to want to get, you know, super serious about it, which I obviously love coaching. My passion is probably the most coaching competitive juniors and trying to get them to play in college and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like I just like seeing people like engaged and pumped about golf, and like instead of, you know, just Saturday or Sunday going to a brunch or something, they're like, dude, let's get the boys together, let's go play Sandpiper, or let's go play the Crossings, or let's go play Torrey or whatever, right? Like,
how many times have you played Torrey Pines?
Well, I used to live here, so I played quite a bit. But they don't really, which I understand, it's a city course. So me being in the business at most courses allows me to, if it's the right time, get out for a reasonable price. Whereas Torrey, if you aren't a resident, which I'm not now, it is what it is.
They don't give you any specialties.
No, I'm not special at all. So, which is fine. The residents are the ones who pay the taxes, and that's, you know, so I get that. But I used to play it a lot. I mean, it's the best value in the world.
Yeah. How many courses that you know of that are public?
Yeah.
Are that nice?
Bethpage Black in New York probably would be the only other one that I would say.
And have also hosted U.S. Opens and
just
tournaments.
Because there's like a municipal city course and there's public. Like Bandon Dunes is public, Pebble Beach is public. So yeah, those are very nice, but those aren't the prices that you're going to get if you're a local resident in San Diego or New York City.
Like what would it cost to play Pebble Beach?
Well,
as a resident,
it doesn't really matter from my understanding that much. You basically have to stay. Generally, you have to stay in the hotel a night or two and pay $500 to $700. So
for a round.
So you're out probably $1 to $2 grand minimum.
Yeah, and
totally
you go to
worth
Torrey,
it, by the way.
It's like,
absolutely love it. But
Torrey, I'm trying to think of the last time I played there for the resident card.
Was it like Henry? You just went $40?
Yeah, that's about like it's $45.
Yeah, it's literally like I would almost move to San
Diego. And it's one of the most
just
epic
for that
courses in the world. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, no, it's a very unusual.
So it is unique. It's very unique.
But also, what's cool is that unlike Bethpage in New York, which would probably be considered to that level, it's also year round. So, you know, you're able to play it in December, you're able to play it in March, whatever.
And I would argue some of the December and January and February,
sometimes
beautiful weather and
100%.
Coming in off the ocean, crystal clear days and all that.
Totally.
Let's talk about the golfers and rankings, but then the money they make. Because you said there's a major discrepancy. And at what point does that hit? Is it like after the top 25? Is it after the top 100? And what are they generally, on average, making? Like if I were in the tour.
Yeah, well, I mean, it definitely, but it's the same thing if you're, you know, talking about an NBA player or a baseball player or whatever. But yeah, like Scottie Scheffler made at the end of the year $60 million this year. Yeah. Just playing. Not
he's number one right now.
He's number one. He's unbelievable. He's so good.
Yeah.
We really have.
Didn't he win the gold? Did he win the gold?
Yeah, he won the gold.
Yeah.
You know, he's he's just incredible right now. Won the FedEx Cup.
Yeah, that guy is
majors.
You keep saying me. I'm not smooth as butter. I'm a crappy golfer in comparison, but
you have great tempo though, man. Great. Don't discount
and
the tempo.
who am I related to?
Freddie Couples.
Freddie Couples.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Butter Couples.
Yeah, he's great.
When we were out there on the golf course and you kept saying that about me, I'm like, I think my swing sucks.
No, your swing's great.
Right.
You need, just
I just need to play more.
You don't have a lot of time. Yeah. There's technique, that's a huge factor, but there's also just practice in general. And bad technique with a lot of practice, that gets you very frustrated. But also no practice, even with decent technique, you're not gonna be as sharp.
I'm a bogey golfer, and I'm pretty much.
But for barely ever playing, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah,
your good shots are great. Like I said, you have great rhythm. But yeah, as far as the tour goes, I mean, it's gotten so much better. And LIV actually, good or bad, has actually pushed the PGA Tour a lot to raise the price,
which is good. Yeah,
it is good. However, if the sponsors for each event, I don't think, I could be wrong on this, but I don't think the Farmers is going to be the Farmers anymore. So there's changing. There becomes a point where companies are like, or the Northern Trust or the blah, 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 right? Like these companies are like, is it worth the amount of money we have to put out to sponsor this event for the purse to be X size to pay these players this much for what we're actually getting
Farmers
back?
goes to sponsor, say the Farmers Open in San Diego,
right?
They're not just paying to put their name on it. They're paying also for some of the prize money.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know how that's structured? Or?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. Actually, I don't want to even get too much into that before I stick my foot in my mouth. But
what would an average player make that's a middle grade player in the tour?
I mean, they would still do really well. I could actually probably look up. It used to be, so top 125 is basically where
125 players.
125 players where you kind of keep your card. Otherwise, you have what's called like conditional status. So you'll have status for some events, not other events. And then once you get in the top 50, you have a lot of access to the biggest events. Sometimes there's no cut events where it's like kind of automatic money. It's almost like one of those things, just like sometimes in business, like the better you do, the more opportunity you have.
Which makes sense, merit-based.
Yeah, 100%. But I would say this day and age is great. I mean, even if you're, at that 125 number, you're definitely making over $1 million a year. So it's not bad. One thing I would love to see if they were able to merge would be, the tour below, the Corn Ferry Tour,
like a minors league,
essentially.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, but they're so good. Like they're right there.
Yeah. They just haven't made it up there yet.
Those guys not having to and not saying they all do. I mean, some of them still live a very good life, but not have to grind quite as much because they are that good. So I'd like to see it where,
and they would be technically below the 125 mark, but they're still right at the.
Yeah. So generally for them, if they
basically you could be in that.
Not right now. Good question.
I'm trying to call them out.
Yeah. No, I mean, those guys are super. I mean, a lot of them all Americans in college. Like,
dude,
very good, so
when we were out there, because we played recently at the Seal Future Foundation in Coronado, watching you and that other guy that was on the other foursome, who was also very good. You guys just, holy crap. I mean, I remember that one shot, I think it was on like the 16th. And you went for it, right? And you went for it. And I think you dropped it 30 yards short of I don't even know, it was like 400 yard.
Probably wasn't quite that long, but yeah, it was a good drive. I mean,
you hit the thing, a bomb.
I mean, it's golf's funny. Like very few people are even scratch golfers or above, but at the same time, if you look at how many golfers are, to that almost PGA Tour level, there's actually kind of a lot in some ways, meaning it's just very competitive. I don't mean there's a lot, meaning relative to like how many people play golf.
Scratch golfer meaning you're par.
Yeah, you're relatively averaging par, depending on the course difficulty and things of that nature.
And you're like 8 under?
No, I mean I'm probably like at this
I'm trying to pep them up here.
No, I appreciate it. If I was a +8, that'd be almost Scotty Scheffler level, I think. Yeah. No, just like with you. I mean, obviously put in more time.
So you see your scratch?
I'm a little bit better in scratch. I'm like a plus 1 or 2.
Okay.
Yeah. But which I love because I still love playing, still love competing. But at the end of the day, I like to take most of my competitive energy and put it into the students that I have.
Yep.
And maybe be competitive in the sense of like trying to be the utmost expert in that field.
Gotcha. So back to studio golf real quick. When are you opening San Diego?
Great question. So we're going to have what we call which you're invited to, VIP opening event. So the first look, in a sense, soft opening, November 16th.
Okay.
So it's about a little less than 2 months away.
Yeah.
And then we'll have our grand opening the following week. And essentially all founding members will get invited to that. So they'll have a whole week to themselves of just them being members, utilizing the facility. We want to make sure too, like if there is anything that's not up to our standard, that we fix it and make sure that it's good. So when we do have the grand opening, it's great. But
Yeah, it's like
we'll
a soft opening than a grand opening.
the soft will actually be a little bit more elevated in a lot of ways. We'll have a DJ, we'll have food, drinks, bites. We'll have all sorts of competitions.
How many
we'll
other
have a step and
locations?
repeat, all
Sorry
sorts
to
of
interrupt you.
different
How
things.
many other locations do you have?
So we have one that's open in Texas. We're
Yep.
building out in LA, Scottsdale, and here is going to be our second location.
Okay.
And then right now we're looking also in the Houston market.
Okay. I love it.
Thanks. Yeah.
What is your vision for it? Beyond, I guess, the 5 or 6 locations you have prepped now. And when you get there, is there bigger passions for philanthropy for yourself that you can think of?
For sure. I mean, I think in golf, that's always been something, PGA of America, whoever, always trying to give back, especially to kids, but just in general, I think super, super important. So I'd love to do a lot of stuff with the first tee, or just a lot of stuff in general with, people that have a passion for golf that maybe aren't in a situation where they can always pursue it to the.
It's not a cheap
they
sport.
Want. No, and something that we've been thinking about too are like kind of some scholarships for different types of people where they could be a member without having to obviously pay for it, and kind of support their dream if they're truly putting forth the effort, etc.
Yeah, or in a way, there's a thought even with studio golf, when you get to a certain point, you can do this, but having a couple, you put it out, you get some applicants for kids that want to learn but don't have the financial capacity to either pay for the membership or clubs or training or whatever it is. But look, they're dedicated, they're going to come in, and then now you can watch their growth. And then what if they turn into a PGA kid, and now all of a sudden you become a hero because you helped guide them through that? And then it's a whole abundance to give mentality of, I have never seen it to where if you give too much, you get screwed. I've never.
Yeah. You make such a great point. And, that would be the ultimate, success story, in my opinion, is having someone that has the drive, has the passion, maybe not quite the resources, and we allow for that, and they actually do succeed. And whether they do or not, I think it's great because they are having the ability to pursue their dream. And then even on a smaller scale, just as you asked me earlier, like, why do we open it? I'd like everybody at least have somewhat of an ability to be able to use the best, tools to get better at golf without necessarily having to have the money of a tour player, have to buy a $25,000 TrackMan or X simulator that costs this much or whatever, where all of a sudden they're, $100,000 out of pocket just so they get a little better at golf. That's not feasible for most people. So being able to have this in kind of like shared team club environment where everyone's getting better together, we're gonna have a lot of competitive things. Like there's different tests that you can do, improvement walls, seeing how much better you get, swing speeds improvement, all sorts of fun competitive stuff too within the club is going to be super fun. I'm excited to bring it to San Diego. But long term, I would just love it to have. I would love to have it in pretty much every major city. I think that it doesn't matter if you're here or there. Like I think people deserve to have access to these types of things, and there are other. I don't call them similar, but somewhat similar concepts that are popping up here and there. So luckily, people are catching on to it. But at the same time, I think this specifically where you have the fitness component, the club fitting, the coaching, the practice without anybody there, and that social environment as well. For when it's there in a club atmosphere is exactly what people need.
Well, and what you're providing, the name of the game in that, because like you said, there are competitors, it's going to be in the experience.
Yeah.
To give you an example, I recently went to a conference down in Florida, and one of the same guys came back and spoke again. His name's Will Gadara. Okay. And if you don't know who he is, he restaurateur, chef, manager, not a chef, manager, but he was hired and became the manager of 11 Madison restaurant in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And then came in there and took it from not ranked at all to number 50 in the world. Okay. Wow. And you'd think, okay, that's great. But he said, no, it's not enough. We want to be the number 1 restaurant in the world. And it took him about 5 years to get there. And he did it through unreasonable hospitality. And so he wrote a book about it. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality. And he spoke.
Good name.
Unbelievable. When you listen to him speak and you understand to the depth they went through to create an experience for people. Because when you get to a certain level in, let's say, the top 10 restaurants, the food's all amazing, the ambiance is all amazing, location's amazing, everything's amazing. So separating you from 10 to 1 is nothing other than how do you make people feel?
Right.
How do you make people feel?
Yeah.
And he was brilliant at creating experiences for people and how he made them feel. And because of that, give you one example that he told on stage. he had a family come in from Spain, and they'd never seen snow, and the kids had never seen snow, and they're sitting in there having dinner, and all of a sudden it starts to snow outside. But the kids they're like, great, this is cool, but we've never sledded in snow. So he had his staff go across the street, buy some sleds, bring them back over. They made a little mini sled out front of the restaurant and let the kids go outside there and start sledding in front of the restaurant. Right? What do you think happened to social media?
People took pictures.
They went apeshit.
Yeah.
And it's those types of things that went apeshit. And it took the restaurant from being, an amazing restaurant, to the experience and how they made people feel by the time they left, through the roof. And they became the #1 restaurant in the world. So I would just say that you never have to compete on price if you can provide people an experience that blows their socks off. That's the point.
Yeah, that's very well put. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And especially
people will remember that, and people will pay for that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly right. We're trying to provide the best experience through not just the technology and whatnot, but just the relationships that we have there. That is also why it's somewhat membership based. So we can, understand, where you started, where you're coming from, how your kids are doing, if they're improving, if they're not. Hey, they have the high school tryout. How did it go? Like, we want that sort of environment with the whole goal of having everybody elevate their game in a very community atmosphere, essentially. So
real quick on this, back to this full swing thing. And I watched this documentary, and you see some of the guys on there that aren't, at the highest levels yet. And they feel like they're living out of suitcases and basic hotels, and they haven't made it yet. But they're making pretty good money. I think it depends on who you're referring to, but I think they're all doing very well. I also think, just like in the real world, some people are more frugal than others. I think when Hideki Matsuyama won the Masters, he was flying home on American or Spirit, coach, with his jacket, his green jacket, that is not what you would typically see. Someone would take a jet home with whoever else. And there's probably guys, which is funny, with PGA Tour, is that, it's very merit based. So if you used to be good, the tour doesn't really care. You don't necessarily stay at the top forever. There's no 10-year contract for X amount of money. Right. And so you might be used to this. Hey, I'm taking net jets all the time. I'm doing this. And all of a sudden you're following the world rankings. It's should I still be doing that? It's kind of hard, as we all know, to go backwards in life sometimes. And it's, I think that can also be, if you have a wife, you have family, you're used to certain things, that can also be a stress, which then generally doesn't lead to better play, because then you have a little more pressure. Yep. Got to step up. Yeah. But I would say in general, especially in the last 3 years, but still even beforehand, anyone that's a full-time player on the PGA Tour is doing very well financially. Right. Yeah. Okay. There are a lot of expenses, though. I don't want to say that there aren't. So you're engaged. I'm engaged. Technically, I'm married. She's a Canadian girl, so I got engaged in Cabo, which was fun. The whole entire. How long ago was that now? That was in the very beginning of January. Okay. I went out there for a pro-am. A couple people I'm really close with, students of mine. I called the head pro. He was totally on board with it. And then I actually had a local camera and drone guy that snuck out. I know. I saw your proposal. I was like, dude, that's legit, man. Don't you're making all the other dudes have to step up their game. I'm typically not as good at that. Somehow it all worked out. But so we did that. It was great. Surprised her on the last hole, and the drone was there and saw the whole thing. But then, so, getting a green card in America is not the easiest thing in the world. She works for Amazon. And so, through them, she potentially would, but it's a 4 or 5 year deal, I think, at this point. So, even though it's probably not going to happen, feeling hey, if I wanted to work somewhere else, I could. Yep. I'm not, only here because of them. And if for some reason I got fired, I'm not going back to Canada type deal. So It just, I think, is a much more peace of mind type situation. So we got married in March, and a bunch of stuff. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. Have you guys been keeping that on the DL, or does that everybody know about? Some people know about it. We didn't do a huge thing, because we are having a wedding in it's 5 weeks, I think, 6 weeks. Oh, 5 weeks from now. Yeah. Okay. So you're going to be doing it in October. Yeah. October 26th. All right. Shout out to Sammy Gold, or Bonebrake now. And it's going to be great. We're going to have probably 120 people. One of my longtime students offered their house in PV Estates. Wow. So we're going to do it kind of overlooking the whole, Bay. Beautiful. And Catalina and everything. So very excited. People coming in from Toronto, where she's from. Yeah. And then, since I've kind of lived all over, I have people come in from Texas, Florida, Arizona. How'd you guys meet? We met the old fashioned way. We were at a bar in Venice, and I was heading to the bathroom, and she was there with her friend, and she kind of just pointed at me and was like, come over here. Wow. Okay. Very directive. Very direct, which she's not really like that. I think she said her friend was in town, and she felt bad that
I think they were supposed to meet up with some other people and like didn't happen. So she's like, I need to like entertain this girl. And so she's like, I'm just going to take initiative. But then I found out that she played golf in college at a school called Queens.
Oh, wow.
In, near Toronto. And, yeah, so we kind of hit it off with that. Our first date was a golf lesson.
There you go.
Yeah. So
right in your alley. That's easy.
Yeah. Yeah. That was great. That was helpful. Yeah. And then everything went really well from there.
What would you say are the top 3 things you like most about her that make her who she is?
Just 3, huh?
Well, I'm sure there's a lot more.
There are.
In your mind, kind of looking a few layers deep, is it certain core values that you...
Yeah, I would just say she's one of the most quality people I've ever met in my life.
Okay.
Why? I just think very trustworthy, very consistent with her word. Just a great person. Very impressive just from a discipline standpoint. I think it even motivates me.
Is that something you like, disciplined people?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, I think at least in the person I'm around a lot, I think that it helps. I mean, I think there's time for fun here and there, no matter what, even if, you don't want to live the same life as someone else. But
sure.
At the same time, I think if you're, with someone, the majority of the day, their habits can rub off on you in a positive way or a negative way.
100%
so in her case, definitely in a positive way.
Yeah.
And she's just very, very mature for her age. She's only 27 years old, sometimes more mature than me. But I think that's what
they
makes
say
it work
add
so
10
well.
years to women, and that's
so we're about the same. Then.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, I mean, I think that would be the main thing. Beautiful girl, loves sports and athletics. We really love to go to the gym together, play golf together. So there's a lot of mutual hobbies too. The way we eat.
Yeah, and I call it core values.
Core values,
right?
Just summed it up in 2 words.
What are your maybe top 3 core values? To give you some examples: integrity, trustworthiness, reliability, freedom. Like freedom's a big one for me. Are there certain core value things that are most important to you?
Yeah, I would say integrity, respect, freedom. Those would probably be the 3 that kind of come to mind. I want to feel like I can rely on someone if they're my partner. I want to feel like we both want to be there and no one's controlling the other person. So there's a lot of freedom in that sense.
Yep.
And I think just respect's a big one. I think that if you're with someone a lot, respect is going to be something that can make or break the relationship.
Yeah. They say that men at their core need 3 things and women at their core need 3 things. There's lots of things, but at the core, and I'll get your opinion on this.
Yeah, sure.
They say that men need the following 3. They need peace in the home. They need a supportive partner. And then they need physical intimacy. Okay. Women, they need to feel provided for, protected, and emotional intimacy, right? Emotional safety. Would you agree with that or disagree with it?
I think that's pretty spot on. Yeah. At least in our relationship, I would say for sure. But I would think in general that would be, and when we talk and let's like in a relationship, you have, issues at times. Fortunately for her, it's been pretty good, but those are things she's expressed to me, having someone that I can rely on, having someone that can help provide, having someone that, is here for me and can hear me out. And I think same things you said, peace in the home. I don't want to come home after a long day at work and have it be more nuts at home, or when I leave the home, like, oh, I can't wait to go to work.
More chaos,
right? So, and that's peace is a great word because that's exactly how I feel. We just got a golden doodle last summer.
Dude, great dogs.
So he's just like the best. And so,
how big is the golden doodle now?
He's like a mini, so he's 28 pounds.
Big? Yeah. So no.
I mean, it's weird. Like
they have different sizes.
Yeah. They can be 80 pounds.
Have you seen the little model golden tea doodles? They're like this big.
Sammy wants a little dog. She wants like a Morkie or something, or a Yorkie, but I would go with maybe that.
Yeah, they're like literally this big. You're like, wait, what are you?
So coming home to that and coming home to her, it's just very peaceful, like you said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything you want to leave us with? Anything that we missed maybe about studio golf that you want the audience to know about? Because it's an incredible endeavor you're doing. Super excited about it for you and what you're growing and kind of taking on hey man, I'm an entrepreneur, business person, and we're growing the stuff.
Yeah. I mean, thanks. Yeah. I would love to just say that, really studio golf encompasses, my 15 plus years in the golf business, plus years before that playing golf, of designing exactly what I would have wanted when I wanted to get to the very best of my ability at golf. Obviously I still want to improve at golf, but my focus now is on the business side. So, or improving other people's games. And so I just designed it. If I was, in high school or I was trying to play professionally, like this is the exact facility I would want.
Nice.
And this is exactly how I would want people to train too. I've noticed through lessons, whether it was at Rolling Hills or, at Jim McLean, they would get very, very good in an hour with me, not just because of me, but because a lot of the feedback they would have, whether it's from me or the video or the technology. And then on their own, they wouldn't have that feedback. So the improvement would very much slow down and the improvement process would be very erratic. Whereas, the way we built this was that there would just be a constant upward flow where they could get much, much better without always having to be with a coach and not have wasted time. So it's very efficient. And if you do want to get better at golf, I promise you there's really no better way.
Is there any way for you to collaborate with the other facilities in San Diego, meaning at the ranges, or is that straight competition? Is there ways to collaborate, with people, with sharing? Or I was thinking, are there either club teams locally that you could entice into your studios, or is there college, or the San Diego State, UCSD, USD that have golf teams that you could, bring in, and then you can leverage that for marketing purposes and branding, and we're the official golf studio, blah, blah, for so-and-so or something. I'm just trying to think off the cuff.
These are all great comments. I mean, I definitely think partnering, whether it's with local universities, high schools, whatever, I think would be a home run.
That's the young golfers, right? You bring in, and then they turn into X, and then now you can I'm just trying to think.
And they know how to use the facility too, which is great. Because, sometimes people go in, they're like, oh, it's so cool, but like, what do I do with it? A collegiate player is going to be like, oh, cool, they have a TRX, I'm going to do this. They have a mobility stick. I'm going to work on my line read and speed when I putt. Oh, they have the new shaft. I'm going to put this in my driver and see how my spin rate changes, how much distance I gain. Like, all of that is kind of intuitive to them. So I love having that type of player in there. But, I would also just say, as far as that goes, it's not, the purpose is not to replace a golf course. The purpose is just to give people a way to get better at golf, also at all times of the day. So, there are some lighted driving ranges, but there's generally not very many lighted golf courses. I guess Mission Bay might be the only one. Not lit anymore. Or sometimes.
It's not lit? Oh, really? That's what you get when you get a municipal golf course, right?
There may or may not be lights that work.
They have limited, revenue.
And so I don't know if I would necessarily say it's competition. I mean, I do think the days, in my opinion, of just buying 150, large bucket of golf balls and just hitting ball after ball after ball is kind of been proven to be somewhat counterproductive. Not saying it can help some people, but I think having a way to know what you're doing and quality over quantity has been proven to be so much more important. And then being able to do it on your timeline at your convenience, and going somewhere where you're going to have the same feedback all the time, know the right people. I mean, I don't think there's a better way.
Can you do other than your drives and your normal irons? Can you do chipping and putting there and practice those?
Yeah. So even within the bays, I mean, you can do all sorts of different short game shots. It has a whole putting aspect to it where you can look at the launch angle of the putt, the face and the path when you hit the ball. You can really work a lot on that too. And then they have, which I love, a lot of training regimens. So they have what's called a TrackMan Combine. Every tour player in the world's done it. It basically is like a standardized test for your ball striking. So it's a great way to like kind of say, okay, am I getting better? And it gives you a score, and you can compare it to like, oh, look, Justin Rose had this score today, or Rory McIlroy had this score yesterday.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's very cool. We have the same thing in putting now, too.
I whipped Schefter's ass today.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, you never know. So, and then there's all sorts of other things, like you can play different golf courses, or you can practice on golf courses, which is cool. Like, hey, I'm going to go play TPC Sawgrass, but I'm just going to hit certain shots over and over again to the island green.
So that's cool, and we'll finish on this. So you can actually go say, you can put up Torrey Pines, and you can actually go play it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's unique.
We have Torrey on? So not Torrey specifically,
but
of course, yeah, but similar types of courses, exactly.
Okay,
yeah,
but you can go literally practice like you're walking the course.
Yeah, like if you're
is there any VR involved in this or no? It's just all screen.
Yeah, all screen.
Okay,
yeah, there is some stuff coming out. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, I think there's pros and cons to VR. There's a giant.
Well, do you know what's really going to happen with VR? So now they're using the oculars, right?
Yeah,
that's just the stage one. But have you ever seen that?
Like the glasses?
No, it's beyond that, because now they're going to do the contacts. So have you ever seen Black Mirror?
Yeah,
on Netflix, where they actually have the contacts and all that stuff, and they overlay your real world on the internet. Basically, is what's going to happen, and it's absolutely coming. So you're not going to have oculars. You're going to basically wear contacts, just like we're here today, and they'll have the real world, and then you'll have what's called the metaverse in a way. But they're literally overlaid on one another.
That could work. Yeah.
Yeah. So that way, anywhere you're going, you can go like push buttons in the air and shit. Yeah. It's coming. Yeah. It's 100% coming.
Yeah. Very interesting.
That's the whole Internet 4 or whatever. What do they see? G5 or what's the internet that came out on the phones? 5G. right? They have 4G, 5G. So the 5G is allowing that to happen now.
Okay. Interesting.
So
yeah, it's amazing. I mean, technology just keeps evolving, and it seems like, it's good, fortunate and unfortunate. There's a lot of stuff even for golf instructors that they'd buy, spend $30,000 on plates.
it's
or
obsolete.
Something. And then 10 years, 5 years later, even it's like,
Wow.
well, we found this better way.
That's wild.
So, but at the end of the day, people just want to get better. So whether it's, I should say it's obsolete, whatever the coach can use to get people better is really what matters. The user of the technology is the most important thing.
Well, I love it for you coming in, spend a little bit of time with us, sharing kind of your passions, your dreams, where you're at, where you're going.
Thanks for having me.
A little bit of the personal side, the golden doodle and the wife now.
Yeah.
Her name's Sam?
Yeah.
Sammy or Sam?
I call her Sammy.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming in.
This was awesome. Appreciate it too.
All right, everybody. Peace out. Chat soon. Actually, before we end up, where can they find you?
Yeah. Instagram, Devan_Bonebrake, or Studio
You're
Golf
talking
Club.
to that camera there. Sorry.
Instagram, Devan_Bonebrake, Bonebrake, and Devin's Devan, kind of weird. And then Studio Golf Club, also on Instagram, and our website, studiogolfclub.com.
Beautiful. All right, man. Everybody, take care. Chat soon.
Thanks, guys.